Hello? Hello? I got good news for you. Got good news. There's all bad news on the news, but I got good news for you. Semester's over. This weird semester is just about over. Here's the last stuff we're doing. Chapter 8, you got to be able to add, subtract, multiply, and divide, and solve for x with these fraction-like things. I'm going to do one more of those. Chapter 9, add, subtract, multiply, and divide with square root things, which I'll do a few of in a minute. So that's it. You might even already know how to do a lot of this stuff. So don't pretend you're done though, because I'm going to give you a test. I'd say, maybe Monday, so it doesn't ruin your weekend, but pretty soon. Give you a test that's untimed and it's due May 6th, because May 6th is when you have your final. So you might be studying for your final and studying by doing problems, and you can just keep pecking away at this take-home test. It's not due at any time. You don't have just an hour. You have as long as you want. So you peck away at that, you work on that, turn it in, and then final exam, do that, and you're done with the class. Okay? All right, so here's the problem I've chosen to do. I took it right out of the book. It's this problem. They have k as the variable. I am not afraid that they didn't use x. So I have a k. Now I got to solve for k. Well, I need a common denominator because I've got all these fractions. I've got addition. I've got an equation with an equal sign. I got to get a common denominator, and there's a gigantic clue. And the book does this. I took this right out of the book, and I do this. This k squared minus 9, guess how it factors? Take a guess. What do you think? What do you think, Taylor? And Taylor says k squared minus 9 factors into k plus 3 times k minus 3, which happens to match exactly the two other pieces they gave us. So, to get a common denominator, I take the 2 over k plus 3 and multiply by k minus 3 over k minus 3. To get a common denominator with the k over k minus 3, I multiply by k plus 3 over k plus 3, which means I'm multiplying by 1, which is always legal. But that gives me a common denominator of k minus 3 times k plus 3 all the way across. So, since I have a common denominator, I don't have to write the denominator anymore. So notice, the k squared minus 9, the k plus 3, k minus 3, they're all gone. Because I now have, the math word is repress. Oh, suppress. I can suppress the denominators. Which just means don't write them down. You might have been suppressed in your life. I get suppressed all the time. I go to committee meetings and they never listen to me because I'm a crazy math guy. I happen to be right a lot of the times because math, is important, but they don't listen. I am suppressed. If you have that happen to you, welcome to the world. It's unfair, it's awful, but it happens all the time. People don't even understand when you're being smart. So we've got this stuff. So I did 2 times k minus 3. So it's 2 times k, 2k, 2 times negative 3, negative 6. I do the k times the k plus 3. That's a k squared plus 3k. And then just plain old negative 10. Now, you should know what to do because you've got a k squared, and you got some k stuff, and you got numbers. You want to get it all on one side. All together set equal to 0 because even if you can't factor it, quadratic formula still wins the game. So you can solve this no matter what. So here we go. K squared comes from the only k squared we've got. Plus 2k plus 3k is 5k. For all you track people out there, 5k. And then negative 6. And then this guy is add 10 to this side. So it's negative 6 plus 10. So that's where that 4 came from. I add 10 to both sides. So 10 minus 6 is plus 4. Well, 4, you get your choice of 4 times 1 or 2 times 2. Which are you going to choose? 4 times 1 or 2 times 2? You're going to choose the 4 times 1 because 4 plus 1 gives me 5. 4k plus 1k gives me the 5k. This factoring is correct. So, setting this equal to 0, k is negative 1 because that's what makes this 0. What number for k makes k plus 1 0? Negative 1. What number for k makes k plus 4 0? Negative 4. So those are my answers, but that's not good enough. You guys have to check. So I'm going to check the negative 1. Here's what I actually do. If I cared about for a grade on a final exam, I would check. On the take-home test that I've got all the time in the world on, I would check. You know why? Because I got to grade 16 of these, which is not a lot. But when I'm grading somebody who has checked their answers, they already know their answers are right. And I see that check and I say, here's a go-getter. Here's somebody who's not going to be a lazy slob. This is someone who is gaining ability. So here we go. Putting in a -1 for every k. I get a 2 over -1 plus 3. And I get a -1 over -1 minus 3. And that's supposed to be equal to -10 over, now -1 squared is -1 times -1, which is worth a +1. So this becomes a 1 minus 9. Let's see if this is true. -1 plus 3 is 2. So I have 2 over 2, otherwise known as 1. This guy is a -1 over -4. That's otherwise known as a +1/4. So that's 5/4. I hope that's in the picture. Do we got 5/4 in the picture? I squeaked it in on the bottom there. That's good. Now the other side, is that worth 5/4? I have -10 over -8. The two negatives cancel. Cancel a 2 out of everybody, and I get 5/4. I'm going to draw a smiley face. Now you guys are going to say, oh, McDaniel, if I did a check and drew a smiley face, everybody would think I'm a suck-up. Nobody's going to see it. Everybody's home. I promise you, I will never show you or your paper to someone else and say, look at this kid. You should be happy. You know you got it right. So that's how you check. Take the answer you got and plug it back in. It takes a second, but it's good. It's good. Okay, let's try some square root stuff. All right, one problem to stand for all. Please understand what I'm about to tell you. Square root is actually just a 1/2 exponent. It's like applying an exponent to this whole thing. But it's not an integer exponent, so you don't have a nice move. You just have to leave it. You can't take the square root of the x squared and the square root of the 9. You can't. For instance, let's just say you could. Suppose I had x squared, let's say it's 7 squared minus 9. Well, this is 3 squared. So if you did it wrong, here's wrong, would be 7 minus 3, otherwise known as 4. And is it in a square root? I don't know. You know, it looks like we took the square root, I guess. So I guess the answer is 4. And this is wrong. It's garbage. Because what this is actually is the square root of 49 minus 9, which is the square root of 40. And there you are. It's not 4. You can't take the square root across a plus or a minus sign. You can't. So don't. And I wish people would listen to me. I wish people would listen to me. This is one of the things that is a deadly disease in my life. Every semester I have students who think square root means just take the square root of anything. And they take the square root of terms. And you can't. You can't. You can take the square root of 9, that's 3. But you can't take the square root of x squared minus 9. So don't. If this was the actual semester we were face to face, I would harp on this for another half an hour. I have stories to tell. You don't want to hear it. All right, now, what do we do with this mess? Well, you get the square root by itself. That's the move. So I have x minus 1 because I subtracted 2 from both sides. So I have x minus 1, and now you square both sides. This is legal. This side becomes x squared minus 9. How great is that? Because you squared the square root. That's the big move. Got to know to do that. So, but you can't do that move until you have the square root by itself. Now over here, you have to do x minus 1 times x minus 1, which isn't just x squared minus 1. You have to have x times x, which is x squared. You got to do minus x, that's minus 2x. And now you get a plus 1. Oh, good news, ladies and gentlemen. You can subtract x squared from both sides. This is a major development. I now have -9 equals -2x plus 1. That's a big deal for 2 reasons. One is the problem's simpler. Another is you don't have x squared in the problem anymore, which means there's 1 answer, not 2 answers. So you're done quicker. So I'm going to subtract the 1 from both sides, and I have -10 equals -2x, x equals 5. And you can check. 25 minus 9. 25 minus 9 is 16. Square root of 16 is 4. 4 plus 2 is 6. X equals 5. 5 plus 1 is 6. It checks. It checks. Now, I have had students graph the left-hand side, graph the right-hand side, and get the x equals 5. They're getting it using a graph, which I want to give credit for. But I'm going to tell you, I'm going to say, please solve, for full credit. But if you graph, I'll give you half credit, maybe a little bit more. But you got to be able to know how to handle a graph or how to handle a square root. And I'm giving you a nice number, so when you're done, you know you got it right. In real life, square roots can be square root of 7. Not so nice. Okay, you guys, try some problems from chapter 8 and from chapter 9. Try some problems. Do this. Add, subtract, multiply, divide, and solve. Add, subtract, multiply, divide, and solve. So try some stuff. Follow book examples if you want, or hit me up. Send me an email, and we can have a chat. That hasn't happened yet in any class that I have this semester.